Let's see, can we get through this video without any interruptions? I just got a message from Facebook saying that it's a poor wireless connection. But anyway, we're going to continue on. So good afternoon. Actually, good morning, because it's still morning on the West Coast. It's 11:42 out here in California, Los Angeles. And just welcome back, you guys. I actually am on a little mini vacation from work, and I call it a vacation for my own personal reasons. Some of you guys probably are aware the inside joke to that, but it's just my way of restructuring the situation and reframing the situation. So while I have my vacation from work, I actually have more time to kind of work on myself and just to reflect and even come to you guys to make wonderful videos about very interesting topics like MGTOW and this new one that's kind of new to me, but it's not, I'm pretty sure, new to most of you guys who will be watching this video, but IBMOR, and I think that's how you pronounce it. Spelled IBMOR. So I'm grateful that I have this time to talk to you guys about these wonderful topics, and let's just get right on in. So some of you guys are probably wondering, like, oh, here she goes again. Here she comes back again. And this is the thing. I'm making these videos because you guys asked for it. For the people who commented on my first two videos that I made on MGTOW, you guys seem very interested in having a conversation about this, and you seem to be very interested in what I had to say, especially the ones who wanted me to go into a debate with a few of you guys, which I declined. I said, I'm not going to debate you guys. This is not a debate for me. This is more of a conversation, more of a intellectual discussion, getting to know more about these topics, more about these ideologies, because you guys don't want to call them movements, but they're very much movements. Yeah, this is just my take on it, and I feel like just as anyone else on the internet has the freedom and the ability to be able to share their perspectives, I have the ability and freedom to share my perspective. I just find it interesting though, because some people actually don't necessarily want to hear what I got to say. Some people are like, MGTOW is our space, and anyone who talks about MGTOW is invading our space. And somehow they feel attacked, I guess, because maybe people have been attacking supporters of MGTOW, right? And I don't attack people who support MGTOW. I express curiosity to learn more about this ideology, this belief system. So just because a person is talking about it, you guys, I want to make this clear. Just because a person talks about your ideology doesn't mean that they're coming for you or trying to attack you, okay? Your system is your belief system. That's what you believe, right? And you have every right to believe. Now, with that being said, I think because you guys are able to make videos about your belief system, this ideology, it opens the door for other people who have opinions and perspectives to also share their view on it as well. So I think that that's the beauty of online. That's the beauty of social media, is that we all get a chance to share what we believe on many different topics. And so here we go. Thank you guys for tuning in, by the way. So, yes, I made two videos on MGTOW. My first video was entitled, What the Hell is MGTOW? And I think some people probably took offense just to my title. They didn't even really watch the video, but they just like, here goes another woman. Here goes another feminist. I'm like, by the way, I don't necessarily proclaim myself to be a feminist. While I do embrace certain feminist perspectives and ideologies as it relates to equal rights, certain equal rights for women and men, I kind of stand in a league by myself when it comes to the feminist movement. So I wouldn't necessarily call myself a feminist per se, but I think you guys who are part of MGTOW or watched this video in my videos previously and have assumed that, oh, here goes another feminist, it's all about what women think and It's just like, come on, you guys. I feel like we can have a mature conversation without the name calling. A lot of you guys have, called the people who support MGTOW. I think, as I said in my most recent videos, I made two videos. The first one was entitled, What the Hell? The second one was Conceptualizing MGTOW. And I've noticed that, you know, based on some of the responses from people who support MGTOW, that there has been a lot of variability within these ideologies. So not all MGTOW men are created equally. So I have to put that out there, and I think some of you guys just don't get it. Just as well as not all MGTOW men are created equally, not all people who respond to this ideology, as myself, are created equally. We're just different, you know. So whatever the general consensus has been in response to MGTOW, don't assume that just because a person makes a MGTOW video that, oh, they just fit within that, you know, because we're all different. Men and women are different. Within the gender species of men, you guys are different. Within the gender species of women, different. Even within one race, people are different. There's so much variability. So you can't assume that everyone is the same, or everyone embraces or endorses the same ideologies. So, yes, I see that there are men, MGTOW men, who have a healthy perspective of their ideology, right, to kind of go their own way. For you guys, okay, I forgot to say this, but some of you guys are like, what is MGTOW? Okay, it is an acronym that basically stands for men going their own way. Men who want to break away from the traditional space within our society that assumes that men should be with women. Men should define their worth just based on having a wife, you know, and a family. These men kind of want to step apart from that and go their own way, as the title suggests, as the name suggests. As I said at the beginning of this video, IBMOR, they claim it's the black male's version of MGTOW, but I don't really see it as that, you know, especially based on the definition that I found online. Now, you guys who are part of IBMOR, feel free to comment, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, it's not necessarily the black male version of MGTOW, IBMOR. IBMOR, it stands for Introspective Black Men of Reform, and basically the goal is self-study and improvement, and they want to break away from white supremacy and the black matriarchal system. So that is different. That's slightly different than what I've seen with MGTOW, generally speaking, because what I've seen with MGTOW is that a lot of you guys just don't want to have anything to do with women. Now, like I said, there's a lot of variation within MGTOW ideology. So some men actually have a healthy perspective when it comes to going their own way. And it's really just about self-improvement, about valuing who they are, coming to terms with who you are apart from having to attach yourself to the other gender species. So I definitely understand that rationale. And I've said in my last video in conceptualizing MGTOW that yes, there are healthy responses to these societal norms, these societal deficits that we experience, you know. Many different people are impacted by what's happening on a social level, on a systemic level, not just men. Women are impacted, black people are impacted, white people are impacted, everyone, you know. So I understand that in response to, I guess, certain inequalities that may exist, and for men who embrace MGTOW, they feel like there is a sense of inequality, an unfairness, that men are mistreated, they're devalued, they get the short end of the stick. They essentially don't benefit when it comes to the cost-benefit analysis of them dating a woman or marrying a woman or having a family. They feel like they just don't win. They can't win for losing when it comes to being with a woman, right? And the solution is just to go their own way. They say they don't want to change any laws. They don't want to change the status quo. They just want to go their own way. And I think for some people who embrace this ideology and going their own way, it's almost like they're trying to get revenge, because you look at some of the comments, you guys have to go and look at my video that I made. It's posted on Facebook as well as YouTube. On MGTOW, you'll see that a lot of these men, their motivation is essentially getting revenge. You know, they're like, oh, we're going to show you women, you know, you guys are going to suffer. You made us suffer for so long, so now you're going to reap the benefits, you know, of what you've done to us. And it's for them, it's really not about self-improvement. It's more about getting back at the female species. It's about getting revenge. It's about making women feel the pain that they feel, basically. I know you guys probably heard of the saying that hurting people hurt people, and I quoted that in my description on my first video, but it's true. And I think for some people who respond to my video and they're like, oh, you don't know what MGTOW is about because you said this and it's not true. The things that I said are basically in response to what I have seen. So nothing that I've said is just coming out of nowhere. You know, it's not like I'm making this up or whatever. Yes, I add my own perspective to it, but the things that I've talked about as it relates to what MGTOW is, and even my response is based on what you guys have said. So for the men who have come on here and did the hashtag, you know, thought chop, or you a bitch, you a hoe, and you ain't shit, and they don't even know me, you know, just making all of these comments, these derogatory comments towards me and just women in general, I've spoken in response to them. And based on what they have said, of course I'm going to have a reaction to that, you know, and like I said, I don't really take it personal, but I can make a conceptualization of what that really means, because it does sound like they're hurt and they're like, oh, well, you're shaming us. And so I think when I talk about MGTOW and I have my kind of response to it, you know, I have a lot to say about it, they assume that I am responding to all supporters of MGTOW. My message is directed to all men who believe in MGTOW, and not necessarily. You have to kind of take bits and pieces of what I say, and if it applies to you, then it applies. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's why I said there's so much variability within this ideology. So when I respond to certain comments, such as the thought chop and the men who are deliberately going out of their way to attack women because they feel a certain kind of way, and I make those my reaction to those comments, yes, that's in response to them. It doesn't necessarily apply to all MGTOW men, so let's make that clear, because not all MGTOW men behave in such a way. Like I've already said, there are some MGTOW men who have healthy responses. So I want to hear what you guys have to say on that, because this is a really interesting topic, and for you guys who don't want to call it a movement, I mean, I think it is. And even for some MGTOW men who say that it's going to have a huge impact, it's already having an impact on our society, you're kind of undermining the influence, the power that you guys actually do have, in the fact that it is a movement. You know, it's something that is impacting, is bringing about social change within our society. So it's definitely a movement in that respect. But I have to make a distinction between IBMOR and MGTOW, because I think they're very two distinct ideologies. They're very two distinct movements. You know, while MGTOW, and I did bring in race as a factor. I know a lot of you guys will say, oh, it has nothing to do with race, right? This just has nothing. It's about men and women. It's more about gender than it is about race. And I say, well, for you guys who know that I am very much attuned to what's happening in our society through the lens of race, racial oppression, discrimination, I cannot talk about such massive of an ideology without mentioning race, because we're talking about an ideology that impacts people on a larger scale, impacts society. This is a social ideology, which means it just impacts a great number of people, men and women. And so when we're talking about even the genders, we talk about men and women, can't talk about gender without mentioning race. There's an intersectionality when it comes to those concepts, those constructs, you know? Just like we can't talk about classism without talking about race. So we can't talk about gender relations without talking about race. And even the fact that there is a such thing as Black men's movement that may sound similar to MGTOW, that's called IBMOR, apparently it's a race thing. And I mentioned that it's a race thing because it seems that MGTOW is mostly white men. Now, I know some of you guys say, oh, there are black men who are MGTOW, but it was you guys who mentioned, it was you guys who brought up the fact that there's a black version, so to speak, of MGTOW, and it's called IBMOR. So to say that it's not about race, I think there's still, like I say, there's so much variability within MGTOW. You guys aren't even on the same page. So maybe there should be a representative for the movement, this ideology, MGTOW, because it's like some MGTOW men are saying this, and you get other MGTOW men are disagreeing and saying, oh, you know what, I'm not necessarily done with women. I just want to work on improving myself and increasing my self-worth and letting women know that, I have value too, that I bring something to the table, and that things maybe should be restructured. They haven't necessarily given up on women, right? And then you have men that are just like, you know what, I'm fed up, I'm done. They don't want to have anything to do with women. And they're even going to the extreme of mistreating women and dishing out hate towards women. And you've seen that in the comment section of my video. That's not really about me. Because like I said, these people don't even know me. It's about their hatred towards women. And being that I am I'm a representative, so to speak, of women, because I am a woman, I'm like this model of women, and especially black women, they're speaking towards that. They're basically projecting their hate towards not only black people, but women. And when you combine that, it's essentially black women. So that's what you see when you look at the hate comments. And I'm like, it makes sense. But when you try to take it in terms of understanding MGTOW, I think that it's important to separate the people who have this hatred, unhealthy conceptualization of what MGTOW is. And I think it's important to be able to understand, like, how much of that is a factor of their belief in MGTOW, and how much of that is just a factor of who that individual person is. It's one thing that, okay, you have a group of men who come together and they have this ideology, and I think it's beautiful when people can come together and have a certain belief system, especially if it's for the betterment of that particular group. I mean, I'm all about that. I'm all about self-improvement. There's nothing wrong with self-improvement, you guys, whether it's for men or women or black people or Latinos, or it doesn't matter. That's not, like, you guys will say, oh, she's a man hater, or she's this, she's a thought. Like, come on. Stop making that. I feel like for men to say that, they're basically trying to come up with an illusion, a false reason for why they give them permission to be disrespectful and to mistreat women. So I think it's very, like I said, it's very easy to go out and do wrong to an individual, a group of people, if you in your mind can say, oh, well, these people are bad, these people are less than human. Same thing with what happened during the slavery period. It's like they had to reconfigure their thinking, their mind, to convince themselves that, oh, black people aren't even human beings, so it gives them permission to go out and to mistreat them. That's what you see happening with these MGTOW men, some of them anyway, who want to throw up all of their ill feelings and their hatred towards women. They want to give themselves a reason to hate women, to give themselves a freedom and a permission to say, okay, that they're doing the right thing and what they say and what they do in terms of mistreating women. So then, in order to do that, the mind has to kind of play this little trick on itself to look at those group of people who you want to mistreat and to devalue them. Because you can't, it's difficult, you'll have a lot of cognitive dissonance in yourself to mistreat a person who you see value in. So you have to basically demean them in order to basically throw them away, to give yourself permission to throw them, so you don't feel bad about it when you do it. So yes, it makes sense in that perspective, and that's what I see a lot of that going on the extreme of MGTOW. On the other end of the spectrum, where you have men that just really hate women. I think, like I said, I think that it's important for people who are spectators of this movement, even men who are a part of it, to really dig deep, because especially if you're talking about this movement is about introspection, to look into yourself and ask yourself, what is it about yourself? Is it you or is it society? It could be both. And I make the parallel of this movement, MGTOW, with what's happening in the Black community, because a lot of times I think we attribute a lot of problems that happen that we see within the Black community to white supremacy, when a lot of times it has nothing to do with it. Now granted, yes, everything we want to look at this behavior, right? We look at individual behavior, and this is a concept even in psychology, and trying to understand clients and know how to intervene and what approach you're going to take to treatment with the client. And we had this discussion, at my practicum site, where it's important to conceptualize a client in the context of white supremacy, and I think, yes, that is important to do that, but just because you conceptualize a client in a certain context doesn't mean that that context is 100% responsible for whatever issues that impact that individual. Because even from a systems perspective, and I think it was it Bronfenbrenner? I'm trying to remember the name of the theorists that basically came up with this systems theory in terms of conceptualizing behavior, and how there are different systems that impact an individual. Yes, there are different systems that we live in, I think it's an ecological systems theory, basically. You guys know who I'm talking about who study sociology and even psychology. But you have the individual basically at the core, and outside the individual is the family and the school system and the work environment, the community and religion, and then outside of that is media, and then you have to look at the legal system outside of that, and it just keeps getting bigger, and you look at basically the overarching views of society, that basically influence all of these different systems, and there can be interaction between one system and another system. So there can be interaction between the individual and their own biologies, their own behavior, their own perceptions with the outer systems, of, let's say, for example, the educational system or religion. There can be this interchange between the two, or amongst all the systems, basically. So I'm not of the persuasion that everything is attributed to society, or every behavior is the function of what happens in our society. I'm not of that belief, because I think that we as individuals, we hold some power too. So whatever happens in our life and whatever behavior that exists, I think is a factor, it's a function, a result of many different things, many different variables. And I don't even know if there's a scientific study that can be able to answer that question as to, when you try to pinpoint a certain behavior, a certain issue in our society or in a person or a group of people, I don't know if there's a scientific question that really can answer what are the exact causes of that issue or that behavior. I don't know, because that's a very complex question. There's so many variables. There's so much interaction amongst those variables to just be able to bring it down. But we can only make certain hypotheses, and we only can make certain, assumptions, but I don't think we can come up with a definitive answer to say women, for example, are the cause of why men are just all fucked up. Their situations are all fucked up. They end up, having to pay child support and basically end up in the negative dealing with women. I don't know that. I can't say that, because you have men who, what about the men who deal with women? You guys feel free to comment. Share your comments below. But what about the men who marry women or who date women and they don't have the short end of the stick? So I always like to challenge people's beliefs, and because I challenge, you get upset, you get offended. You say that I'm attacking you or I'm shaming. No one is shaming you. Man, by all means, believe what you want to believe. If it's freeing for you, if it's satisfying for you, believe what you want to believe. No one is trying to take that away from you. If that's all you have, that's what you have to do on. If that's what gets you through each day, all I'm just saying is maybe you're giving women way too much power. You're giving women way too much power. And even to the extent where men at this point are like, we're going to take back our resources. We're going to show women, what we're made of so they can appreciate us. And we're going to do women how they did us. And all I'm hearing at the core of that is you feel disempowered, And so in order to gain power, you gain your power back, it is basically to do to women what you feel has been done to you. But I don't think that's a healthy response. I don't think that's really going to give you the answer that you're looking for. I don't see how that is going to be productive. And I'm talking about for you, because I'm kind of concerned about what men's needs are, because I hear all of these comments coming from men, and it's very interesting. But I'm just trying to figure out how is that, if that in your mind makes you feel empowered, because apparently it does. It's a reason why there are so many men that are commenting these negative, comments on my video, and you a bitch, and you a gorilla, and you a monkey. It's just like, okay, if that makes you feel better, I mean, you're not really hurting me. I mean, it's sad to see that men have reduced themselves to that kind of behavior, but I'm going to live my life. I'm going to still live my life. And so, as I was saying, it seems like men are trying to, I guess, snap back at women in a way by withdrawing their resources to reclaim their power, to reclaim their sense of identity by just not wanting to have anything to do with women. And it's funny because you know how you create a video and you have so much to say, right, as I always do. But then you end the video and you're like, dang, I meant to say that. So this is one thing that I actually wanted to ask men that I actually completely slipped my mind when I was doing the video. But to the MGTOW men out there who are going their own way, and I mean the ones who are on the extreme, because I know there are many different MGTOW men, but the ones who have decided that, you know what, I'm going to die a single man, I'm going to die a man that don't need a woman, and all of that. And especially those men who have taken to attacking women and making all of these sexist, remarks and comments, as if women are just the most evil creations on earth. What about your mother? I wanted to ask the question, seriously, what about your sisters? What about your aunts? I mean, has it ever occurred to you that you come from a woman? So I'm trying to make sense of this. How can a MGTOW man have all this hatred towards the female species, but you come from a woman? Now, don't get quiet on me now. Don't get quiet on me now, but answer that question for me, man. Because it doesn't make any sense to me. And then, I think, because these men need consensus, right? It's all about numbers. There's more power in numbers. So, it doesn't matter the race, like they said. It doesn't matter the race of the men who want to subscribe to this ideology of MGTOW. They trying to recruit as many men as they can, right? And, you can't say, oh, it's not a movement. You're trying to recruit. You're trying to build. It's almost like a religion in a sense, right? Where you have these ideologies, belief systems, and you're, going out and you're spreading the word, like they do with Christianity or Islam. Spreading the word to, non-believers or people who never even knew what this thing was, right? And you're spreading the word to them, and then you're trying to convince them, oh, this is why you need to go your own, this is why you need to leave women, because they are doing this. And I already told you guys, I am not, completely against MGTOW. There are certain aspects, nuances of it that I may disagree with, but I do understand the premise of it. So, I understand you guys. I understand what it is that you guys need from society you know, and the pains that you guys have been suffering. I can understand that. Like I said, as a black woman who know what racial oppression feels like, I only can imagine what gender oppression from on your perspective, on your end, because women, we are oppressed too, but apparently men are oppressed in their own way as well, and that's what the whole MGTOW thing is about. But like I said, I have to ask that question, you know, because some parts of it just don't make sense. You know, the attacking, you know, it's like you're trying to gain something, right? You're trying to feel a sense of power, but this thing is very dynamic. And it's like, on one hand, yes, you feel oppressed by a gender of people, right? A species of people. And you feel oppressed because of your gender. But is it necessarily completely gender oppression? Or is it your own thinking? Or is it your own personal experiences that you bring to the table? I think it's a mixture of all of the above. I really believe that my last breakup was mostly because I wasn't a needy person. He was intimidated by my strength and independence. He felt he had to challenge me on everything, and when he felt to challenge me on everything, and when he found something he felt that I lacked, he worked it. So I humbled myself for 8 months, and then when he started again, I just shut down and bowed out. This was a 20-year relationship. Wow, 20 years. He loved me for my qualities, but hated that I had them. So I just got tired. I was losing myself just to make him feel good. Men need to be empowered and hate when a woman has power and a voice. Out. Wow, absolutely. Trinisa, that is a great perspective, and I appreciate you for sharing. Like, this is how we can build conversation, you know, and that's, Trinisa, a prime example of your comment, how you're able to articulate that and talk about your own personal experiences, and you're not really got to be attacked. What I've been noticing with men who, you know, they have a voice, they have a perspective to share, but they don't know how to go about sharing it, so they just be like, oh, well, fuck you, bitch, I disagree. It's like, come on, you can communicate, we can have a conversation and back and forth without the name calling, without the disrespect. So I really appreciate Trinisa's comment and her kind of putting her personal experience into it. That, I think what you're saying is very powerful. This is an observation that I even made myself, and I kind of talked about it, about why do men feel intimidated by successful black women in my video. You know, and it's just like, yeah, everyone wants to feel needed, especially men. I think it's part of their identity that they want to feel valued, they want to feel needed. And when a man comes to a point where he don't feel valued or needed, you know, and it makes sense, especially your comment makes sense, especially in the context of what we're talking about, because I heard the men say on my comments when I make the video MGTOW that, oh, women, you know, they're working. It's like you can hear what they're trying to say. You can read between the lines, you know, with the women's rights movement, you know, y'all got y'all rights. And you know what the women's rights movement, it resulted in. Women, we were able to go to work. We were able to kind of almost make as much money as men. You got some women making more money than men. So imagine the impact of that, how it impacts the relations between men and women, you know, on an individual level when it comes to building a family. It did impact them apparently, and it's amazing how it's just kind of coming out now. Now I know you guys who are, you know, hip to MGTOW, you guys, or MGTOW been out, you know, this is nothing new. I get it, but it's still kind of fresh. You know, it's not like MGTOW been around. I think versions of it has, but the name itself, like having a name for this, it's good that you guys put a name to it. It's good that you guys are giving voice to your concerns, your issues, because it's something that we need to know. Like, who would have known the response or the impact that the women's rights movement had on men until now, where men they're speaking up saying, you know, this is how we are impacted by it. You can tell. I mean, like I said, part of me was okay with men coming on my videos, even if they, you know, they said some things to me, you know, but I knew it wasn't about me, because I'm like, these men don't know me. But like I said, I'm kind of like this object that represents the thing that has hurt them over many years. So I get it, you know, me being a woman. And you can hear the pain, like you can see it. You guys have to just look at the comments, you know, all of the hatred. And I was like, y'all can't be hating me because I ain't did nothing to you. You know, and they're like, oh, it's women like you. Women like me don't even know me. A woman, okay, what is a woman like me? A woman that goes to school, that's working towards her PhD, you know, that is self-sufficient. Is that what you mean by women like me? Because I'm like, what did I do? I don't hate men, number one, you know, so I don't understand the animosity, but in a way I do understand the animosity, because when you think about it from a selfless perspective, it's like, yeah, men were impacted by the women's rights movement, and there was a period of time where men felt empowered. You know, that's what made up a man. That's how a male's identity was defined, by being able to be the breadwinners, being able to be the providers and take care of the home. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And the reason why I think I experienced cognitive dissonance in response to me first finding out about MGTOW was because I'm like, I'm actually more of a traditional woman, and especially I was kind of shocked by some of the comments towards me, you know, from men who don't even know me, because I'm just like, I know these men can't know me, because anybody know Danielle know that my thinking is more in the traditional sense. So to hear men pour out their grievances like this about how they want to move society back to the traditional way of how things were when women were dependent upon men, where men were not invisible, but they were very much needed by women. I'm like, damn, me too. No pun intended, but me too. It's like, me too. I've been talking about this all along, you guys. Like, you guys know who follow my videos know that I've been talking about this, know that I always say that I want a dominant man. Like, that's the kind of household that I see myself in. That's the kind of relationship that I see myself in, where a man takes the lead. I want to give a man that power, and even in the context of BDSM, which is a kind of whole different video, but it was very much related. I consider myself a submissive, so I don't have a problem with a man having the power, basically. So I find it very interesting just to see, that how the women's rights movement has impacted men in that way, where, yeah, they do feel disempowered. They feel like, well, damn, I ain't even needed. And yes, with women working, I've seen it for myself. Women are like, I got my own. You don't need a man, We need a man for when you got your own. And it does create a certain attitude in a woman, the attitude, it changes. Women can't deny it. I think as women, we have to be honest, and we can't deny that when you have your own money, because there's even a meme about this, and I'm trying to remember how the meme goes, you guys, on social media, but it's like basically talking about the different classes of women. Basically, women who make, I think, like less than, I don't know, $15 an hour, for example. Then you got women that make $30 an hour, and then women who own their own businesses, for example, self-employed, got a, decent income. This has basically different brackets of women, social class of women, and just saying how their responses is and how it relates to how men, they interact with men. It's almost as if, I think it was talking about listening. It was just like, the woman who barely make, a lot of money, she doesn't listen. And then you guys you probably post a meme, you guys probably seen this meme, and the woman who makes a step above her, she, doesn't listen or something like that, or she may listen but not really, not at all. And then the women above that, basically the woman who making bread, ain't got no ears, essentially. I forget the exact wording, but it's something to that effect, basically. Just saying how, like, as the more money that a woman makes, the less she's gonna listen. It impacts the relations between a man and a woman. She don't really, it's just like, well, listen, And we know how important listening is, in a relationship, no matter if it's romantic or platonic or business or whatever, but listening is very important. But it does, I think, it speaks to the reality that, yes, when a person gets a certain amount of status based on their income, they do develop a self-concept, and it impacts their self-concept. And that self-concept impacts their interpersonal relationships with people. And just like I say, it's not even just romantic, you know, between a man and a woman, but it just impacts the relationship with people, and they're just like, who are you talking to, you know? I make 6 figures, or, you know, I'm a celebrity, or I'm this, or I'm that, so you can't talk to me any kind of way. And I think over time with women, you know, having their freedom, you know, the right to vote, and being able to speak out, and being able to own their own businesses, or become president of, you know, these Fortune 500 companies, and have all this power, because power is a construct. That, yeah, it just, when it comes to their relations to men, they just like, who you? I mean, yeah, you know, naturally women are attracted to men, not just biologically speaking, that's just nature. But women have this perception, ideology, like, what? You know, like, you can't tell me this, when before there was a hierarchy. And it's almost as if what the man said went. Women kind of follow, because women, their lives depended upon men. Now, I mean, honestly speaking, when you talk about a woman who is making just as much money as a man, especially that woman who, if the relationship was to dissolve and end, that same very woman could stand on her own 2 feet, right? Think about it. Yeah, it makes perfect sense that a man would feel disempowered when he's dealing with that kind of woman, you know. But men, let's be clear. Don't blame women. You can't blame women. Women are just mechanisms, right? Like, we are all part of society. We're all part of the grand scheme of things, you know. So you can't put this blanket statement and just say, oh, that's just women, how women are. No matter if you say you're different, no woman is different. But that's not true, though. Because like I say, how do you explain? And I want y'all to answer this now, because I'm asking these questions. The questions that I ask, give me an answer. Tell me, how do you explain the women who are in relationships, who have been in relationships, who are married to men, and the relationship is working? How do you explain it? Now, I think I know what some of you guys are gonna say, because I've seen some of the comments, and for men who have sided with me, y'all actually attack them and call them simps and be like, oh, you're a beta male. You know, that's not an alpha male if you have to agree with what a woman says, you know. Just like, really, y'all are speaking very black and white and very extremist. Like, I don't think it's just that black and white, just agreeing with a woman that makes you a simp, you know. I think that, yes, men want to be heard, and men want to take the lead and be alpha and all of that. But even being alpha doesn't mean that you don't hear what your woman has to say. You know, you can still be alpha. You can still lead. There are marriages, and I want you guys to comment who this applies to. But there are many successful marriages out there with alpha men, with submissive women, and those women still work. They still bring in incomes. So I don't think it's that cut and dry. But I do want you guys, the men who are hating women, have resulted to that, to answer that question. What about your mom? Because she gave birth to you. So if you hate me, you must hate her. And in reference to the IBMOR, I'm like, I think it's a separate thing. And if it really is about men gaining a sense of themselves, gaining worth, doing some introspection, and wanting to break free from white supremacy and black matriarchy, if that primarily is the goal, then I think that's a beautiful thing. But if it's just to say, okay, well, this is our version of MGTOW, especially with respect to not wanting to have anything to do with women forever, or creating this society where only men exist and women, you know, don't exist, and just berating women, I don't think we're going to get that far with that. And I don't see that that's what black men are doing. I do see that there are some black men who have drank the juice of the unhealthy ideologies of MGTOW, you know, and they're trying to side with white men against black women, which I take issue with that. That's where my response comes in, because you guys know that I'm a Pan-African. I'm about black power, black empowerment, and that means the family, the black family. And so for you guys to say that, oh, black men are with us, you know, these are white men saying this, that, oh, black men are with us, they don't want to have anything to do with black bitches, and, you know, they hate y'all black women, and y'all black women just put them on child support and want to have babies and milk them for their money. And we can't have those conversations, I feel like, because y'all just don't know. That's not a white man's place to think for a black man. Black men have their own minds and they can make their own decisions, and I think that's a beautiful thing for them to say, you know what, we actually want it to be where the male takes the lead, you know, so there's black patriarchy. I'm with that, you know, because I feel like there has been a disruption in the family structure, and I think that there are some problems that have resulted from that. Now, some of you guys who are feminists may completely disagree and say, well, no, well, women can lead to, you know, even same-sex marriages are healthy and successful. But even within same-sex, whether it's two men or two women, there's usually a masculine, so to speak, person and a feminine person. So they still mirror traditional heterosexual relationships. So it's interesting how you try to break away from something, but you're still finding your way back to that, because we have these archetypes within us that we can't control. It's just something that is birthed within us. It's something that you can't get away from. So even if you try to just say, okay, I hate the way society is, I just want to break away from it and get away from it, the archetypal energy that's in you is going to pull you back in that direction. So that's what you see even in same-sex relationships between two men and two women. They still have that, well, you're going to be the man, I'm going to be, you know, the feminine person, you're going to be the masculine person. And the same thing with, you know, the MGTOW people who are on the extreme. Like, okay, we're going to just break away from women altogether, and we're going to have a male society. But you're still talking about artificial wombs. You know, like, there's still going to be a gravitation, because that's just the way nature is set up. That in order to create a baby, you have to have male and female. The male anatomy, the female anatomy can only create a baby, so you can't get away from it altogether. It really just makes no sense. Maybe gender, you know, but in terms of male, female, that's always going to be there, because scientifically it's impossible to create a baby without the female anatomy, without female biology, you know. It's just, how are you guys going to do that? Two dicks cannot create a baby, you know. Even two women cannot create a baby. Yes, you have lesbians that have babies. I have a friend that I went to college with that she's married legally to a woman, and they have a baby, but they still had to purchase sperm. That's what I'm saying. For you guys to really have this idea that somehow you're going to get rid of all women and have this male society, it just makes no sense. But I need to keep this video short, because I need to go ahead and download it and upload it. But I thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for your comments. Let's continue this discussion. I believe that we can have a healthy discussion without all the hating. For you guys who have like made hate comments, you know, I can't see your comments, and you're like, oh, she deleted them. Dude, really? Like I said, some comments I actually left up because I want the world to see how much hate there is, but some of it is just redundant, you know, and you're being a troll. You're just saying the same thing over again, making like 20, 50 hate comments, just repetitively saying the same. It's dumb. So those people, yeah, I've blocked, and you're wasting your time coming to my video with your hate, because no one can see your comments. So I feel like social media, online, the internet is just a space for everyone to talk about whatever they want to. You know, we're talking about a concept. I'm not on here pointing fingers or calling names and attacking people, or That's not my thing, you know. I'm not even attacking a movement or ideology. I'm just challenging some of the thoughts, some of the conceptualizations that you guys have made within this ideology. So feel free to comment. And I look forward to what you guys have to say. Catch you guys later. Love everyone. Bye.